It's Film Don't Lie from UGAsports.com. I'm Dayne Young. That's Brent Rollins. He works for Pro Football Focus. He's the data guy. He's the football coach. He's all the things that I'm probably not, other than. And your video skills are growing too. So maybe
getting there.
Maybe the video savant thing is. I'm not even sure if I'm that either. But I tell dad jokes, and you can probably verify if they're good or not because you've been a father longer than me. We intended on doing this national championship Film Don't Lie very shortly after the game. We paused, and I think for pretty obvious reasons, and we'll touch on that in a second. But Brent, now that we've had a little while just to reflect on Georgia's season on the field, the fact that it was able to win an SEC championship, a national championship, go undefeated, and do it in a way that Georgia outscored its opponent in a bowl game at a greater deficit than any bowl game ever. Like, it's almost unfathomable.
Yeah, and it's one of those, I think the biggest thing that I've done since the game, outside of rewatching the national championship game, is rewatch the Ohio State game. And it's one where the more I rewatch that game, like that game 7, 8, 10 out of 10 times is a Georgia wins by 10 or 12, 14, something like that. And because every drive that Ohio State had, there was a massively egregious penalty, like penalty that would have put them in a very, but Stroud played it out of his mind. But this was just, I think once they got through that, you could just tell, and you watch like the SEC Inside after the game, how dialed in, and hear Kirby after the game talking about the scout team. They realized at this point, hey, it's everything, anything and everything for history, for all the, superlatives that you want to throw out there. And they absolutely dominated this game.
They did, and it was early and often. We're going to go in chronological order other than this very first play, and I think it's just fitting. I think it's the right thing to do. We want to point out a great play that Devin Willock made in the national championship game, final game of his career, unfortunately the final game of his life, with the tragedy that happened, him dying in a car accident. Also thinking of Chandler LaCroix and her family. I know the team was at her funeral this week, so we just wanted to really start this with them in mind, and we'll talk about Georgia football. We'll talk about all the things to be praised in this, but let's start by showing Devin Willock at left guard making a block here that helps aid Stetson Bennett being absolutely untouched on the second quarter touchdown run.
That plus the fact that TCU, and you'll see this theme throughout, it's a great double. They have no edge in this game. They have their defensive plan was possibly the worst defensive plan I've seen any Georgia opponent in the past 5 years, just in terms of plan and what we're going to do. Wholly unprepared for a lot of what Georgia did. And here, like that, Willock does a great job. And, you talk about a player that played almost 5 times more snaps than he played the season ago, was the 4th highest graded lineman, was improving, was going to be a key part of the program moving forward. Like,
started 2 games for Georgia this year.
Yep, played in all 15. And, obviously the tragedy, it's gut-wrenching. It's absolutely gut-wrenching. But, and it is his.
Yep. So, there's a great play from Devin Willock. And we're going to continue with our regular show and programming. We skip back to the first quarter, and Georgia's defense got the ball quickly for the offense. It didn't take Stetson Bennett and company long to do something with it. I was a bit surprised that Georgia went empty so early.
Yeah, it's one of those where you see TCU doing that number. Like, did they see that on film where it's like, okay, empty, we get this check, we know exactly what coverage they're in. And the theme from the start of this game was one where I've wanted to see this all season, and we finally got to see it. Just the heavy, hey, we are throwing the ball and getting the ball to Brock Bowers early and often. Like, he was clearly the primary read here once they designated their, the middle of the field open coverage. And Stetson looks left at all the stick routes that are there, and then instantly comes back, and we see it later in the game too. But it's the getting Bowers the ball early, just it opens up everything for what they do because he's that special. And you could see early on that Stetson was just dialed in.
He was, and the windows are a little bit larger because TCU's not quite as athletic. I mean, at this point, you tell me if I'm wrong. This battle's over right here because it's just like you're not catching up to Bowers if this is your positioning at this point.
No,
And so
and
that opens up all of this.
And unfortunately for TCU, like if TCU fans, come back, they watch the preview and then they come back and they want to watch the post game. 57 is not going to get a lot of love tonight, dude. He just struggled. He struggled in this game, struggled in space, struggled with his eyes, and their whole defense struggled, but him specifically. And the key here is that it's the timing. The timing part. If Stetson doesn't time this right, doesn't get into it at the exact moment, and that's what TCU counts on. They count on you not necessarily having a defined plan and us being able to break on the ball. But what the key here, as much as anything, is the threat of Bowers deep. And his ability to get deep, it makes it to where you have to respect that as a safety, and then it's easier for him to come underneath. Stetson hits him right on time.
The fundamental flaw that I think that TCU's defense has is simply in numbers of 1, 2, 3, and then Stetson having all day long. Because if he didn't like what he saw with Bowers here, he probably had another 5 seconds to figure out what he wanted to do.
And we talked about that in the preview, right? And it's something where, like, I've hated this defense forever because as someone from West Virginia and watched West Virginia growing up, they really started it with Jeff Castile. And you see where blitzes are coming from. How oftentimes it's just easier to block you want to create confusion in the back end. And if you don't create confusion and disguise coverages in the back end, the defense is going to get shredded.
So Georgia starts marching down the field. Get a little two-back action.
And this is something where, 21 personnel, two backs, Bowers at tight end. This is something that you saw in this game. I think three plays in this game out of the 9 times total that they did this the entire season. So it's obviously something that they saw on film that they can exploit. And the biggest thing with this is, I don't understand why TCU played the way they did. They kind of played Georgia like they played Michigan. I thought they would play Georgia kind of like they played Kansas State, a little more spread out, especially along the defensive line. But if you look here, Georgia instantly has the edge because of their alignment to the field with the guy that's between Broderick and Truss at left guard. It's with that inside sort of tight look there to the field side. I realize that they feel their linebackers there, but Georgia just instantly gets what they want. And if
Kenny with a whiff block too,
right, and if Kenny McIntosh kind of peels inside and gets the scraping backer a little quicker, and Kendall's able to accelerate through this, it's a touchdown. I mean, in the way their DBs even played the receivers, and just the edge was just owned all night for this. But 9 times all season, you saw 21 personnel from Georgia with 2 backs and 1 tight end. 5 of those, 3 against TCU, 2 missed State. So that type of defense, they obviously feel like they have an advantage and can create mismatches with 2 running backs on the field.
Now just outside of the red zone.
When we talk about the other part of this defense is, one, you got the sort of flying V look, like Mighty Ducks with the 3 down linemen, the 2 next linebackers, and then the 1 linebacker overhang in the middle. And and this is something we saw a little bit on tape and we kind of showed, but how downhill they flow and how almost overly aggressive they are, mainly because they feel like they got, these outside guys and safety type help. But this is something that Georgia didn't do all year that they could do because of the way TCU plays defense. Is you read the 3 tech here and Broderick arcs out and blocks. I mean, there is no one there. Their linebackers still don't even know that Stetson had the ball, sadly. Like, look how long that they think that Stetson gave the ball. I mean, that's just too easy. Way too easy.
With as close as they play, too, this is a ton of space back here that if you somehow get past this, it's done.
Yes.
Like there's no chance for error on these plays. So like to me, that's saying that you're an aggressive defense. But I look at the front and I say I get that they get downfield some, Brent, but like they weren't getting into the pocket. And so if they can't do that, some of it because of athleticism, some of it because of numbers, like that's the flaw in the defense to me is you're designed to be aggressive and you can't be.
Well, and you think, what is it ideally that the defense does? It puts more athletes on the field, maybe a little more speed, but their linebackers weren't the fastest. But also Georgia's kind of length and, how strong they are and their just general length compared to them, just, height, wingspan, all that sort of stuff takes over especially in the box. And they just had no chance. Georgia did whatever they want. But this is amazing. It's easy read. Stetson does a good job, by the way, weight transfer on the fake. That guy and then the two linebackers. Like watch those two guys. Like I think Stetson's inside the 10 before they realize he has the ball.
Yeah, and then they still have Xavier Truss in front of them.
Like no chance. Absolutely no chance.
One of the bets that I think ESPN Plus had a thing where Stetson talked about this. The edge rushers or the players for TCU that would be at the edge, he had supreme confidence that he can outrun them. And we'll see that later on in this as well.
Yep.
This is not the most egregious look at that because pretty much he said, if they're going to ever go cover zero, I'll just outrun them to the edge and it's fine. Like, I don't care because I can do that. To me, that is supreme confidence in his athleticism, and he's earned that. He's a really good runner. He's fast. Like, I don't want people to say he's fast for a quarterback. Like, no, he's not Justin Fields fast. No, he's not Lamar Jackson. No one ever say that. But he's a really fast football player.
Yeah, he'll be in the 4.5s, I think, when he runs the 40 at the pro day or combine, whatever he does it.
Which that's plenty fast.
Legit speed. That's legit speed.
Next step.
So this is something, one of the things that, first off, the throw, put some sauce on it. The catch, white men can jump, like Ladd making plays. But from a design perspective, this is something where, and people have asked me this at kind of ad nauseum, and the Bowers part is a little interesting because what he does first, and I've also shown some things, and I'm like, look, people, this is not how this works. Georgia does not save plays, period. End of story. Like, now, is the game plan week to week sometimes more basic based upon the opponent? No. Or yes, yes, it is. But in terms of, leaving things in the clip, no, never. But what does happen is when you have the layoff and this is what's going to be interesting, I think, when the college football playoff goes to 12 teams, because of the big layoff, what can you do? You can go look and analyze and evolve. This thing right here came from that layoff. This was found, by the guys who do all sort of watch tape and, hey, this is something we can do because it's acting like counter, and you show guard pull, Bowers coming like, hey, we're going to run counter, and then he peels back. Like, this was taken from the NFL, and that's like 100% fact. Trust me when I say that. But this is something where, hey, you think, oh, they run new plays, and and by the way, the reason I asked is because I text, I'm like, you've never done this all year. Where'd you get this? NFL. In that downtime, you find little things like this that can make your game, because it's counter, it's guard, tight end counter coming. This is something, to me, this single, and we see it again later, but you're going to keep this and you're going to use this because of how much you've evolved as a counter team moving forward. But this was not something that was saved. This was something that you watch film and you learn and you evolve in that layoff that you have.
The funny part to me is that when you look at what Stetson sees when he turns, you have 4 open receivers.
Yes.
Because
three really open, or 2 really open. One,
AD and McConkey are running to space where there's an open. Darnell's right
Darnell's
here,
by
so yeah,
himself.
that may be a tough throw with a guy in your face, and then
You can. He's there, but you could still throw it to him if you really wanted to.
I'm just saying, like, I think any of those would be completions.
I agree.
That's how dominant Georgia was.
And
I also think Stetson Bennett could have just kept running over here and probably had a good shot to get the first down.
Yeah, because Browse returned and blocked.
Yep.
Very much so. But he wanted to put some sauce on it and give Ladd a chance to show his ups. How healthy he was.
Himself already by that point. Now it's 30.
This is one where I thought they would do more of this in the game, but they actually did do a lot of the formation. Like if you go back and sort of chart formationally, they did a lot of trips with Darnell or Bowers on the other side, and I thought they could do this at least 5 times in this game because TCU just gives you this. They would always, for the most part, align to trips with that 10-yard depth. And because they have no edge, unlike Ohio State, where the edges were flying up the field and that play, could be tipped or you had to perfectly time it. This is an easy throw. This is just pitch and catch and go run. And what's amazing about it is Darnell is thinking, all right, hey, there's going to be people there. And he doesn't realize that, there's nobody there. If Darnell peels back, this might be this is a huge play if Darnell peels back. Because he's like, there's going to be guys downfield. I'm looking for guys downfield. There's nobody there. And then he finally realizes, I got to turn back. And then Ladd's, right there. But if he knows that there's just not guys there initially and that you get the cut inside of that, it's a humongous play. But it's just easy. I mean, this is 10 yards of easy money.
We'll rave about Ladd McConkey more later. All I'm saying is Georgia is very fortunate that Ladd McConkey returns because he's one of the team's best players, and he has been for a while.
Yes, very much so. 100%
we'll
fact.
Continue to see more of that.
Couple things with this play.
Speaking of,
I mean, listening to, I think it was the SEC Inside or something like that. They talk, like you could hear Stetson on the sideline talking about this play where he was just shocked, basically, that nobody ran with Ladd. And what's amazing, there's a couple of things. One, they did the sugar huddle, the quick huddle on this play and went tempo. And you saw TCU scrambling and not really communicating well. So what happens when you get that? You get a team to, oftentimes when you do this, you get a base look, a sort of base coverage for them because they can't disguise something. They can't set it up. There's no time. They just got to get lined up and say, hey, we're playing. They're going fast tempo. We're going to be in this coverage. Kind of like Ohio State knew that Georgia was going to be in cover 2 when they threw it down the middle of the field on the drive before the half. That type of thing. This is their primary. This is a quarters look for them. And then once AD clears the safety, the corner has to make a choice. And ideally, you would think he would stay with Ladd, and this would still. But even if he stays with Ladd, this is an easy completion on the league play to the running back. Even if the corner, who's right, sort of, like Stetson, just pick your poison. And this is one of the few times he got hit.
I didn't even realize he got hit here. You're right.
But, Winters, the linebacker for TCU, I think I heard him say, well, they didn't do anything special. No, they've run this play for years, since Todd Monken has been there, and you just defended it horribly. They went a little fast, and you didn't have an answer.
This is not one of the most impressive plays from McConkey. He should make this, but I'm glad he did because I just think he's awesome.
And one last thing with that play, one more sort of last thing with that play. And yes, for those of you that are watching, we're going to go a little longer today. Guess what? It's national championship. We'll do this for a while. But they used jet motion on passing plays, like with Edwards here, coming a lot closer to Stetson, like a true fake, better than any game they had this season. And I think when you have that time away, you can kind of practice and look at those little details. But the timing aspect of jet motion with play action passes in this game, better than at any point in the season.
And Dayne Edwards, I thought, he didn't have as many touches necessarily, but he was a valuable piece in this game.
Always a positive impact. Never is a minus in this game.
All right, Georgia deep in its own territory. We have Brock Bowers coming in motion, stopping and returning.
Yep, and all right, Dan, I'm going to trivia question for you. See the formation. So pause it before the play. what we notice about the running back. He's in sort of the pistol formation behind the quarterback. Before this play, how many times had Georgia run the pistol formation this season?
It is not frequently. So let's see. I'll say, I like the numbers 6 and 9, so I'll go between 6 and 9, and we'll say 7.
Less than.
Yeah.
One play prior to this play. You know which play it was? It was the 2-point pass that A.D. Mitchell had in the SEC championship play, in the SEC championship game. So it's not really a sort of true from scrimmage play. But one of the things with, like I said, time away and analyzing what worked against a defense, their linebackers and the way they flow, it made sense to do this. And we're going to see it here. We're going to see it in the running game. And this, to me, this play, and then we'll see it later in the running game, are two humongous plays for what you're going to see Georgia's offense moving forward. And by the way, another early Brock Bowers touch. Like, it's just – and I think 3 guys went with Darnell in this play. At least 2. And the third guy kind of looks down at him as opposed to turning around and finding Bowers behind him. So, again, horrible defense.
These layered routes, we've seen this more and more with Todd Monken of if Stetson Bennett can get moving, he's so good at making the right decision on these. And I look at this and I think this is an NFL play with an NFL quarterback making the good decision here.
By the way,
you're not going to get hit and you're going to get like your first down.
Choosing between 2 NFL tight ends to throw it to.
Fair enough.
And, but we'll talk about it a little bit later in running game.
Don't say the NFL play caller. Don't say that. Don't do it. Don't throw that mojo out.
Yeah, there. I didn't even think about that actually. But the way they block this is the exact way they blocked it later in the game, and it's going to be big. And I'll sort of talk a lot about more so the 2023 impact of that when we look at the play later. But still, great play. And this was, by the way, after TCU had punted. Like they decided not to go for it, and was the game's 17-7, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll get to the play in a little bit. The other definitive it's over play.
Next up, we have a fake toss. We love the fake toss.
We've seen this for years with Monken too. I mean, Fitzpatrick dropped. I still remember Fitzpatrick dropping one against Florida in 2020. But the biggest thing here, you think, oh, Stetson, why didn't you put this ball out in front? I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all because historically, sometimes the DB who's covering the middle of the field or covering Arian Smith there peels off, maybe comes back and gets into that. Go ahead and just throw the completion. And I think he just throws the completion here more than anything.
I mean, if I try to read his eyes, it almost looks like to me that Don Blaylock is the read here initially. I could be wrong, but it looks like he's trying to see, will this stay open for me?
Well, and also keep number 1 at the bottom of the screen who's on Arian from peeling off to Bowers as well and seeing that and making sure. But again, big play, Bowers early, consecutive plays where you hit him. He that's it. Just when you use him early and like he had the most receptions that he had and the other touches, the most touches he's had in the game all season.
This to me showed how aggressive Georgia was because with a lead on the scoreboard already, look how vertical this play is. And yeah, like there's a couple elements that kind of start as like a wheel on the outside, but like they get downfield quickly. And historically, when Georgia has a lead like that, they're kind of fine to be more methodical.
Right.
Get your 7 yards, if that's fine. Like how often do you see Georgia go for chunk plays with a massive first half lead?
Well, we should have known better right after we heard the Holly Rowe. What do you want, Coach? Aggression.
Well, he wanted aggression from his coaches too, is what I'm saying. Yeah,
that's an all-timer of an answer, by the way, to a pregame question. And with a straight face, one word, just aggression. Like
it was very Popovich.
It was, but it was also like, hey, we know we're going to destroy this team, and I think thus we're going to go put the foot on the throat early.
One reason that aggression is possible, I mean, you have people that are like 10, 15 yards downfield, and the line of scrimmage is pretty much at the same spot, pass protection-wise.
He was pressured on 5 of 26 dropbacks, which amazingly, by the way, I think is a little bit higher in terms of rate than his overall season, but he wasn't touched all season basically, and in this game particularly.
Now into TCU territory.
And this is one where you mentioned earlier, like 1000%. There is no ifs, ands, buts. He knew exactly what he was doing on this play, switching the protection, moving it to the right. And by the way, this is 3rd and 10 after, TCU had punted and not gone for it like they should have. And he's like, all right, I know exactly what's going on here, and I'm just going to bait this guy and then outrun. Like, this is the ultimate just confidence play, like you said. And he knew it, and you could tell that, because you can even look at Broderick. Like, you can watch Broderick Jones with this. Ooh,
sorry, I was trying to find
speed.
a way to illustrate what happened on this play, and it's one thing. It's I'm faster than you, but that was too many letters to write out with, a little illustrator.
I thought you were going SB4 for a second, but no. Watch Broderick though as he comes up to the line, and then right before the play, Broderick's like, "Okay, I got him." Then right, he was like, So Broderick points left. You got him, right, Stet? Or I got him, and then Stet comes up. No, and then he looks up. No, you get him. So Broderick's like, "Oh, so I got him. Okay, got it. Let's go."
Such body language here. And then ready, speed, whee!
Yes. And you think about this? I wonder if any Georgia fans had a flashback to a certain play against Auburn in 2020 when he did that exact thing and then hit Kyrus Jackson on a sliding catch, like maybe on about the 7 or 8 yard line, something like that. Folks should probably remember that one. Same sort of thing. Free blitzer, 2 minute. We don't have enough to block. We're in empty. They're bringing 6. We have 5. QB is responsible for the last edge. Just awesome.
No answers. Like TCU had no answers for anything that Georgia wanted to do.
And the fact that, by the way, he did that and he knew it was 3rd and 10, like that's even more sort of love it.
Stetson under center here now.
I think this is maybe the play. This is maybe a little earlier in drive, but still, this is just easy money. Maybe. I don't know, but who knows?
Get into Bowers. That's the decision.
No, I don't. You don't. This is right.
Yeah.
This is, in terms of orders. But this is just easy. Like, they only have to block one guy on this play. And speaking of not blocking guys, check out our boy 57. Right there trailing the play with the white thing. Watch him as he has zero clue that Bowers has this ball. Right there. Play. All right. Look, boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
Does Stetson have it? No. Oh, no. Stetson doesn't have it. That's just – and by the way, if 3 takes the safety, if he takes one more step forward, Bowers houses this. He comes up, sees it. If he took one more step forward and didn't have the angle that he had, it's a house call. It's phenomenal. And I love him. I'm sitting there as I'm watching the game, just loving the fact that they're giving him the ball consistently.
Well, it had been a while. They needed to.
And that's what, he's the ultimate offensive chess piece. Because there's no other team in the country that can do this. They might do it with a receiver that kind of lined up there or a running back lined up there, but not tight end. Not where, they could go power run right to a, 5-man surface type deal.
Let's brag on the athleticism too of Broderick Jones, because these kinds of plays aren't possible unless you have a speedy left tackle. I think this is probably as close to this kind of movement as I've seen at Georgia since Andrew Thomas. And I don't think Broderick Jones is Andrew Thomas good. I think Thomas is one of the best players to ever play at Georgia. But he's been really good for Georgia this season. I mean, the whole offensive line has been. You heard the stats just about how few sacks have happened.
Sacks, pass block efficiency. And The run blocking hasn't been as great, but I think a lot of that is just what they do and their style. But the pass pro, and that's what NFL teams, they care about more than anything. They want, can you protect the passer? We'll scheme run game. You know, if you're a dominant run blocker and you're Trent Williams or even Andrew Thomas, you know, and you're different, okay. But you know, because of his athleticism and his ability as a pass protector, Broderick is going in the first round, and I think will possibly be the second Georgia player taken in the first round behind Jalen.
Another player I think will be in the first round, and this is just how much of a luxury that Georgia had with talent on offense. When you can afford to play in a national championship where Darnell Washington doesn't have to do anything and you're still really successful. This whole play is away from him. He doesn't touch another football player. Does not matter. When you have the biggest unicorn in the sport and he can just chill for a play because the rest of it's fine, that says so much about the talent you have on that team.
Talent and, you know, scheme too, and design. Yeah. Because when you combine great scheme, great design with talent, that's what you get. You get this kind of game. You get, by the way, I predicted before the season that they would, and I think it's an article coming out on the website, looking back at the predictions I made, I thought they'd break the scoring record. They were one touchdown. They were 6 points away from breaking the points per game record. Two missed field goals or one touchdown from.
Blame the rain in that Tennessee game.
I think so. I think, yep. That and Sanford were the only games they scored less than a touchdown in the second half.
It's Chris Hatcher. You got to slow it down.
3 points in the second half against Sanford.
That's one of the GOATs. Moving on.
More moving bodies and more horrible defense from TCU. Like I think you and I could get at least maybe 3 or 4 on this.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thanks, buddy.
Well, the safety's coming up. We might get killed, you know, as the safety's coming up. But
like if I step foot on a football field with any of these quality of athletes, I'm just going to poop my pants, and that's pretty bad. So, you know, I have no issue admitting that. It's crazy what these people do.
What's amazing for me with TCU's defense and their design, with the way the way their corners playing at the top of the field here, right around the 40, and just sitting there as a run fit. I'd love to hear their run fit talks, because watch 50. The corner's kind of sitting outside. If he's sitting outside, fine. And based upon the formation, again, by the way, kind of a trips look. Is he the outside edge from a run fit perspective? Because 57, like watch our boy 57 again. Like he's playing the QB, and Broderick is fully expecting him. And it's amazing to watch Broderick on this play, because he's like waiting for the guy to come back into the play, and he never does. Broderick's like, okay, I'm getting ready to block you. What are you doing? I guess I don't have to block you. So he's like, dude, aren't you supposed to come back here? But no.
There's a classic story where out of a timeout, some NBA player forgot his play, and LeBron James told him his play of what that player should be doing against LeBron James. That's how well he had scouted them. This kind of looks like Broderick Jones could be saying, hey, you need to be closer to me. I can't do my job if you're over there.
You should be here. And you think, by the way, a lot of that in this game was Georgia's offense expecting players to be in certain spots that they just weren't. And TCU's linebackers, like Winter said, Georgia didn't do anything special. No, they didn't. TCU just played horrible, especially at the linebacker spot. And this is and by the way, movement. Good job by Truss at left guard, helping out on the nose with Van Pran. Boom, get out of the way. Now it's a huge hole. Go from a solid hole to a huge hole. This is maybe my favorite play of the game.
Here's your trips.
And this is, I think, 3rd and 15, maybe, almost. And just rips it. And then we get a little curious trying to get some extra shove like the O-line did. But
read this for me. Be the quarterback and read this defense. What's Stetson looking at the
well, you instantly seeing the middle field open. So with the way the middle of the field is open, you've got in-cutting routes. Somebody's going to be coming into that space. So I'm going to take my eyes to a certain spot. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of looks right a little bit at the snap. Or does he go? He go left. He goes left. Left. So he expands that guy. So his eye, is left. His eyes expand the guy who's on right above the 23 right now, the safety who's above the 23. Once his eyes take him that way, and then keeping him with depth, he knows the in breaking route is there. And then it's just timing and letting it rip. By the way, the umpire almost gets beheaded with a throw. It's a great job. But like from a coaching perspective, when you see that look and how they play their defense, and you know that space is going to be open, it's kind of almost like their version of Tampa 2 in a way, where that guy's in the middle of the field. But that's because it's all timing based. Like everything here is seeing it right, hitching up, throwing the ball exactly at the spot you want to, exactly, at the moment that it's needed to be thrown, and then the spot is needed to be thrown. That's when it's just like, melts your heart as a coach. And that's the way we do it. That's the way we draw it up type stuff. But great throw too. He ripped this in there.
There's a ton of really good throws in Stetson Bennett's catalog at this point. I think this is one the NFL teams will really like to see.
Yeah. Because of the velocity you've had to put, because of the anticipation. I think that's the biggest thing that we've talked about this. We've shown this. He's great at anticipation, especially from a longer throw perspective. Down the field, or throwing the ball into open space, like we've seen the Bowers throw against Kentucky, the Kenny Mack throw against Arkansas last year, some of those type plays. But that's anticipation with having to rip it, and that's a different animal. And showing that again, it's an NFL throw.
McConkey in motion from the slot here. This is a confident throw to me because this is decent coverage.
Yeah, and we talked about how good their guys on the outside were, and we get A.D. Mitchell's last catch as a Georgia Bulldog.
You had to find a way to make some people upset in the chat. That's what you had to do. You're not. You're saying facts. I understand.
It's factual information.
Yes, you're not giving a slanted view. Everything you're saying is correct. But
it's a great throw. It's a great catch. And the best part about it, and I like that they're taking a shot right before the half here. The best part about it is his little move right as the ball is getting ready to get close. He kind of like slows down just a little bit and leans into the DB before reaching out with so right there where he slows and leans and then reaches out with his right hand just to give that separation, just to make sure that the DB couldn't kind of elevate with him. Just a little bit of lean, and then great catch. Comes down with it.
That's just fighting for the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Want to, all of that. What's interesting when you think about when he was on the field this year and played more than 15 snaps, and actually played Oregon, LSU, Ohio State, and TCU. I think they averaged, what was it, like 40 something points a game, 560 yards a game when he played. Like that spot, it's the threat. It's the threat of that guy just going one-on-one and beating you that, kind of opens up a lot more for the offense. Bowers obviously opens up a little bit of everything. But when you have that guy as a threat and can win one-on-ones, it makes your offense borderline unstoppable.
At this point, let's say, if this is still holding up, that Stetson has another 2 seconds, that's a lot to ask with this rush. I get that. Dom Blaylock over here would have given him another option too, if for some reason he didn't feel confident throwing that over the top to AD, because this is clearing out for Blaylock. But again, that's confidence in your receiver. That's one of those things that they just practice all the time. I'm throwing it up here over your shoulder.
One-on-ones all day, every day. And you get a 38-point first half and an absolute just destruction. But I felt the game would be at minimum a 3-touchdown game. I think my prediction on the website was maybe a 22-point difference. But I didn't realize the foot on the gas, foot on the throat, leave no doubt. Like if you'd heard that, like if I'd have been able to hear aggression as the answer pregame, I probably would have extended. But I thought that Georgia would be able to do whatever it wanted to offensively, and they pretty much were.
Let's see. Is that our last play? I believe that's our last play of the half. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Great half of football for Georgia. We will have a second half feature with Georgia's offense. We'll feature defense as well, but we have time, my friends.
Yes.
We have a channel that we will curate content for. We can do some longer features. We can do some schematic things and kind of look back at the season as a whole. But on this channel tonight, as we're recording this, you will also see the second half of Georgia's offense. And then probably next week, we'll get into Georgia's defense and maybe some things that to be excited about. One, Smile Munden. I keep getting excited about him. He gets better and better and better. But overall, Georgia's offense first half won the game.
And you think about the game, like, again, I said at the beginning, when you feature Bowers early, I mean, he had the most touches he had in a game all season. It's just, I've wanted to see it all year and finally got to see it. And you think, and folks, we talked about AD, that, that's his sort of last play, but think about what's being added in the transfer portal with Lovett and Thomas, and we're going to look at those guys. But also think about this game. In this game, the two guys who are your best receivers that are coming back, 12 catches, 240 yards, and 3 touchdowns between Bowers and McConkey in this game. Everybody else, 8 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And those two guys are coming back.
See, this is why we make a great team. You took something I posted on Twitter and you just made it way better with like actual stats and data.
Threw some numbers into that because it's right. Like the two best receivers are back from the last 2 years, by the way, from the last 2 years, not just last year or this past
So that's why there will be so much focus on Georgia's quarterback situation, because they get that right. All the tools are in place for Georgia's offense to do a lot of this again, especially when they play teams the caliber of TCU's athletes. And if anyone dares run a 3-3-5 against them again.
That's, the other part, I said this about saving stuff for the championship game. Yeah, let me think. I'm going to save stuff for a 3-3-5 defense. Yeah, no. Not going to do that.
It doesn't work that way. This is Filmed Out Live from UGAsports.com. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe to our channel. We're the most popular Georgia Bulldogs YouTube channel here on the internet. We're really proud of that. For Brent Rollins, I'm Dayne Young. We'll see you next time.